So throughout the day, we're going to be answering some of the AMA questions that some of you have asked. We appreciate your participation in this, and so we're going to be sending out some grind gear to everybody that participated. I'm excited to get these answers out to everybody.
I'm Wright. I work at American Income, and my question for Simon is, what's one thing that changed you?
My man Donald. I think the one thing that changed me was me allowing the Lord into my life. It's probably the biggest thing that changed me is that I was, almost pretty much in, well, bring the camera over here, Logs. I lost you for a minute. I think that it's this guy's birthday. Hey, happy birthday.
Thanks,
my man. I think that I was pretty much an atheist, at one point in my life. And coming into this business, I just kind of was talented but lost a little bit inside out. And I got blessed and lucky to find some mentors that helped to reintroduce the Lord into my life. So I would say that the one key thing for me was letting the Lord into my life that changed me. And the second thing would be when I decided I was going to humble myself to listen to every single word out of my mentor's mouth and execute 100% of what Marcus Smith and Jim Surace told me to do 100% of the time, not 99. Those were the two key things to me.
Hey, I'm Keith James, and Simon, my question to you is, when you're locked and loaded and going towards your goal and everything like that, do you ever feel like you're not spending enough time with your family, even though you're making as much time as possible? And how do you help them understand with what you're going through and what you're working toward?
Keith Sweat, absolutely, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can relate thinking about when I first started all the way to now. I got lucky. In the beginning, I did feel that way. I missed Sunday spaghetti dinners with the family a lot of times, 22, 23 years old. I moved to Cleveland. I wasn't even living, near my family. Then I moved to Columbus. So I was just blessed to have my mom, supporting me, man. I don't know how many of my family members really were backing it or supporting it, but I know the one rock that I did have, my mom understood the grind. I was blessed. That's why sometimes your curses end up being your biggest gift. My mother and I stood in welfare lines at one point in our life, and I watched her work minimum wage, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, move herself up all the way to district manager. I was 16 years old. Finally, we bought a house for $30,000. We sold one for $11,000. So my mom already knew what it took to go from where you are to where you wanted to be. So she grinded. I watched it happen my whole life, and so she supported me, the entire time, because she knew, what it took in order to be great, in order to be successful. So that was something in my heart. I would miss her. I would miss my family. I would miss those things, but she would always back me and remind me, of what it takes in order to be great and successful. I would think about her, and I'm thinking, man, I didn't have a kid at 19. When she was 22, she had a 3-year-old kid to worry about and all these other things. Thank God for my grandparents that helped. But, that was the first thing. And you fast forward time now that I have a wife and 3 kids. And, the whole time I think life is always a series of balancing sacrifice to create opportunity. Sacrifice to create opportunity. And it's like that in sports or anything else. Our military sacrificed to give us opportunity. Generations above you and me, our great-great-grandparents sacrificed to give you and I an opportunity that we have right now. And so I always look at, like, who am I sacrificing for to create what opportunity? And so I look at, where do I want my family to be 10 years from today? What sacrifices are necessary? Because there's always a price to pay. And I just make sure that price always makes sense, to me. Anything that's majorly important, I'm there for. You know what I mean? I'm not missing my daughter graduating high school. All the major things that I need to be at, I'm having. I'm getting date nights in with my wife every single week. But I'm also putting in 70 hours a week right now, at least. And I travel. But there's 168 hours in a week. So if I take out 68 hours of grinding, I got 100 hours left. If I sleep for 50, I got 50 hours left. It's what you do with those 50 out of your 168. You got to 187 those 168. You got to murder those 168 hours. You can't wing it. So you have to schedule in the time that you need, or that you need to spend or want to spend. And typically it's not a lot of time. If you need 10 hours, 15 hours, take that off the top of your 168. If I took 18 hours off of 168, I got 150 hours left. If I sleep for 50, I got 100 hours left. If I work for 70, I got 30 hours left. That's after I already spent time with family, slept, grinded, everything else. So I think I've learned to organize and prioritize my time, but just keep the mindset of understanding that there's no way to create opportunity without somebody sacrificing. And once again, I got lucky and got blessed with a great woman. I got a strong woman. You know, the pros and cons of having a strong woman, an independent woman, is she's not needy. She doesn't need 24/7 attention all the time. She understands sacrifice, grind, and she likes to be a little bit independent. So shout out to my wife. I got blessed and lucky that way.
First and foremost, I would like to say happy birthday, Simon Arias. Thank you for the opportunity that you have provided for so many people across the agency in 5 different states. Your impact is insane. So I had a couple questions. What was your biggest challenge when starting your own agency out of Pittsburgh, being from Ohio? And how did you overcome that challenge? And second part of the question is, where would you recommend someone start taking care of their mind, body, and spirit? If someone coming into the business, working with Arias agencies, has never been exposed to the idea and importance of taking care of their mind, body, and spirit.
So my biggest challenge, I think, was, you know, in the beginning was the pressure. You know, so I didn't have that long before I knew all these bills were going to be on me. Thank God I had a savings account coming into it, because I ended up spending, you know, if you're asking me just when I came to Pittsburgh, this is when I came to Pittsburgh, opened up the deal myself. This isn't for a new agent. This isn't for somebody brand new in the business. I want to be clear. It was me opening up an office, starting from scratch in Pittsburgh. So I spent over 50 grand in the first couple months. And then, you know, my mom and I don't come from a lot of money. She was helping me at the time with staff. And I remember her like crying, seeing how much money that went out of my bank account. And me being able to stay calm and confident in where we were going in the midst of, you know, her seeing the money going backwards when I was a kid. You know, I was 24 years old at the time. I'm 35 years old now. So you know, that was one. You know, the other one I would say is, you know, I remember one period in my first maybe 18 months where I had some major personal issues going on back home with my family in Youngstown, Ohio. And so I was driving back and forth a lot during those weeks, very emotional mentally, but walking back into my office and needing to be the motivator, inspirator, strategizer, and be positive and uplifting to others when inside I was stressed out and emotional. And then in the period of this, I had some people around me in my business that got disloyal to me, to me, to no reason. You know, you live and you learn, and I always look at like what could I have done better, and take some responsibility. But had that happen all at one time. All of that stuff happened at once, and nobody to really turn to. So that's when I realized I was, you know, there wasn't a lot of people that I could go cry to, mope to. It was just me and my relationship with the Lord, and game time, go time. You know, and I knew that it was one of the breaking points for me in life that I keep talking about. Breaking points in people's lives sometimes elevates them, sometimes it breaks people down. And that's what I think the blessing was for me, being small, playing sports always, and being an underdog, and living in a rough environment. You know, I think that I always get better when I get pushed, when I'm challenged, when I'm down, when I'm an underdog. Usually the best of me comes out. And then, you know, you spoke about mind, body, and spirit. I just try to live by example, you know, and is it better to act like, you know, Jesus or read things and do all these other rituals. That's why people always are shocked when I tell them that I'm not religious either. When they say I'm not religious either. I don't have a bunch of loopholes that I think you need to do in order to be, you know, where you need to be. But I am spiritual. I have a relationship with the Lord. I try to lead by example through waking up, exercising, reading, prayer, scripture, and I don't judge people, you know, if they're not on the same vibe. But I do know what it does when you are. I know the result, and I know that I was 100% coachable. I know what happens when other people are coachable to that process, how it impacts their life internally. And so, you know, I just learned over time that most people ain't gonna stick with it, you know, mentally, reading books and stuff, and spiritually and physically. So I just try to lead by example, and I'm still doing it to this day. Up at 5 o'clock this morning getting it in. So I think if I lead by example, I don't focus on the ones that don't. I try to, you know, hopefully give them time for it to wear on them. But I focus on the ones that do. And the ones that do are the ones that make it all worthwhile and give me energy to keep pushing and keep trying to pour into everybody what I know that works. Because when I watch it work in their own life, it inspires me.